Chief Flynn is known as a data-driven chief who believes in community policing.
But being police chief also has its burdens, and perhaps one of Chief Flynn's most poignant moments came after a ruckus fire and police commission meeting to talk about the fatal shooting of Dontre Hamilton.
Flynn was at that meeting when he learned by phone about a little girl named Layla Peterson who had been shot and killed while in her home by gun-carrying criminals.
Here's how the chief responded when people questioned why he was looking at his phone during this heated meeting.
The greatest racial disparity in the city of Milwaukee is getting shot and killed. Hello. 80% of my homicide victims every year are African American. 80% of our aggravated assault victims are African American. 80% of our shooting victims who survived their shooting are African American. Now, they know all about the last 3 people that have been killed by the Milwaukee Police Department over the course of the last several years. There's not one of them can name one of the last 3 homicide victims we've had in this city. Now, there's room for everybody to participate in fixing this police department, and I'm not pretending we're without sin. But this community's at risk, all right. And it's not because men and women in blue risk their lives protecting it. It's at risk because we got large numbers of high-capacity, quality firearms in the hands of remorseless criminals who don't care who they shoot. Now, I'm leaving here to go to that scene. And I take it personally, okay?
Chief, I thought that may have been one of your toughest days, a hard day for you. And I think it speaks to the challenges you faced. Do you agree?
Yes, because it really kind of summed up everything.
Yeah.
Sure.
You know, it summed up the terrible toll violence is taking on the young in this community. And it really nailed me when I found out she was sitting on her grandfather's lap and she's the same age as one of my grandchildren at the time.
I can see it still hitting you here today.
Really got me. And the other piece was, you know, the meeting I was in summed up all of the stresses that we're dealing with right now. You know, every critical incident can undermine years of neighborhood-based work to try to improve the trust and legitimacy of the police department. And when I was running off those statistics about disparate victimization, I'm not throwing rocks blaming disadvantaged communities for their, you know, victimization rates, all right? It's the symptom of poverty the police deals with is violent crime.
Sure.
But what's frustrating to me is the self-styled activists and the vast majority of the politicians would rather seize on the one component of the equation, which is police activity, and leave totally unaddressed the bigger societal issue, which is the interlocking series of disadvantages of which serious violent crime is one. And you cannot understand what we're trying to do in terms of whatever disparities we generate in our activity if you don't acknowledge the goodwill we have in trying to deal with these terrible violence disparities. And that's the essence of the frustration right now.
Let's talk about that, because what I think a lot of times people feel, especially in the media sometimes, that you have to come out on the defense. But what is it that the community misses in your commitment and your passion to Milwaukee that may not always translate when you're in that rough situation like you were, and we don't see the, no disrespect, the human side of what it is you are trying to communicate to those?
Well, it's, I mean, and what my officers are trying to do every day. I mean, you know, 3 days ago or a week ago, you know, the NIC squad, those 2 young officers, bail out of their car, crawl into a car, and pull unconscious young men out of a burning vehicle. Now, the first line of the story wasn't 2 white officers just saved the lives of 3 young black men. It was 2 police officers saved 3 young people.
As
and
it
that's
should
as
be.
it should be, absolutely. But if it had been a shooting,
Sure.
it would have, an implicit in that observation would be there's something wrong.
But you can't deny that we have an issue in Milwaukee of racism, of segregation that we unfortunately do not address on a daily basis.
I absolutely agree, but the challenge is much of that segregation is economically driven, and the overwhelming disadvantages of those communities afflict every service agency, including the police.
No doubt.
And so what I'm saying is when you're trying to view our activities, applying gross census data to that is so wrong when we are actively engaged with the most needy communities at their request. And I just want an expansive discussion of both. Yes, we need to be fair and impartial and respectful. Yes, we need to be effective. Yes, we have to worry about inappropriate disparities, but we have to look at these disparities over here and say, okay, what are we doing? And perhaps I'm seeing some movement now. This Office of Violence Prevention, there seems to be a little bit more animated discussion about the community piece, so I'm hoping we can start to move that dialogue past, you know, pointing fingers.
Well, we want to turn to a lighter moment as you head into retirement. We reached out to a guy who knows a little bit about retirement, Mike Jacobs. He has some free advice from you.
Oh, how nice.
Hi, Chief. Congratulations on your retirement, and thank you for your dedicated service to the community. 10 years, tough job. You did it well. I think you're going to like retirement. I know I sure do. Basically, stress levels come way down. You get to do mostly what you want, and you don't have to do the things you don't want to do. So my very best wishes for a happy retirement.
Some good advice there.
Excellent advice from one former stress addict, and one former stress and adrenaline addict to another. So, okay, I'll take that advice.
Chief, we do want to say, though, both. We appreciate your service. We admire the fact that you want to have that dialogue, and you have always been present to have that dialogue.
Thank you very much, Shannon. Thanks
for being here.
Appreciate it.